Well, good morning, everyone. We'll get started with today's class. So today we are going to look at some op-amp based feedback circuits. And so last class we looked at noise. So that noise is a very fundamental concept in analog systems, not only just analog systems, in general. When you talk about electronic systems, noise and distortion are the two major things which limit you on either extremes of the signal strengths. So today we will switch gears and go back to op-amp based circuits. Now, before I do that, there was a little bit of confusion about the noise power spectral density. Now, unfortunately, because you still haven't studied random processes and random in the mathematics subject, or for that matter in signals and systems and so on. I mean, I cannot go into all the depths of mathematics here. So just let me explain. So when I meant the power spectral density, the y-axis, the x-axis is F, okay? And I said that, for a resistor, the voltage power spectral density is given as 4 kT R, right? Now this is the power spectral density, okay? And which is given as volt square per hertz, all right? That is the unit. Now, you can also have the, so this is given as, the modeled as a noise voltage source with the power spectral density of, so Vn square bar is given by 4 kT R. Okay. Now, when we say density, it is per hertz. Okay. Now, let us say I have some FL to FH. I want to know the noise power in this bandwidth. Basically, what I will do is basically integrate this 4 kTR df from FL to FH. Now, since this is constant, it becomes 4 kTR times FL FH minus FL, right? Or in other words, it is taken as 4 kTR times bandwidth. All right. Now, this is the total integrated power. Now, this is the integrated noise power. Okay, and this is in terms of volt square. Okay, now why do we say it is power? When you talk about volt squared, you can assume that this voltage is, if you have the same voltage across a standard resistance of 1 ohm, that will translate to the exact power number. Okay, now in practice you will not have a 1 ohm resistance, but if you were to stick a 1 ohm resistance there, the power would be V squared by 1, which is the same as V squared. So that is how it is defined. Okay. Now this is the noise power. So the same way you can also define ampere squared per hertz. Okay, which is what I also mentioned, which is the noise power spectral density. Usually the symbol is like a double-headed arrow. So this is 4 kT divided by R, and you have a resistor like this. Now, if you were to look at the ampere squared per hertz noise power spectral density, this is going to be 4 kT divided by R with F. Okay. Now, this is the, and again, the same concepts apply. So, which is why we call this as the voltage noise PSD. Okay, and that is called as the current noise PSD. Okay. Now, why is it divided by R? I mean, why do you always multiply it by the transfer function square and all that? You will learn in the other course. I hope that clears the doubt.
Okay. Sir.
Yeah.
Sir, here the polarity of the source we have done added because of noise, we can't predict that. Na means it can be either positive or it can be negative.
Correct.
And so that's why we have used the double-sided arrow for current source.
Yes. Because it's random, no? It is with a mean of 0, and it can go either positive or negative.
And sir, for the power of the signal, we have to for here it is constant, but in the case of some other element, we have to take at some frequency the instantaneous power, and then it has to be integrated from FL to FH.
Yeah. That's why I gave the this thing, the generic form of integrating. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. All right. So now let us move over to some feedback circuits using op-amps. So now these are going to be very practical circuits that we can use. Now the first thing that I want to bring to your attention is, first of all, so let's try to build a current source, a constant current source. Okay. What is a constant current source? What is the definition of a constant current source?
So means irrespective of any load, it will provide the same current.
Correct, right? So irrespective of, let's say you have some RL, right? So let's say this is I naught. Now this voltage V out can vary depending on the load that you're using. Now as you change RL, your V out will change, but no matter what your V out is, your current needs to be constant. Right? That is the definition of a constant current source. Now, how can we build a constant current source? So if you recall earlier, I said that if you put a transistor in saturation, right, that happens to be that can act as a current source, right? So for example, let us say I have a PNP transistor. Let's say I'm going to bias it using some VB. And let's say I have a load which can vary, right? Now, if I vary this load, how will this behave basically? What will be the current, let's say IL here? Let's only talk about resistive loads. What will be the performance? How will, if I'm going to plot, let's say V out here, V out versus IL, can you tell me how it is going to behave? Let's say at very low impedances, your V out is going to be quite low, and you're going to have a certain value of, let's say IL here. Okay.
So it will
now
increase.
as you increase the resistance, what will happen?
So V out should also increase.
V out increase, yes.
V out will increase. Okay. Let us take one more point here. Okay. This is, let's say we are going to find out this point. At V out, let's say a little higher V out, how will the current behave? Will it be constant or will there be a little change? If there is a little change, will it be higher or lower?
So if we increase the V out.
Yes. So RL increase leads to a V out increase. Now V out increase, how will it impact IL?
So I think IL should remain same.
Okay, but what about early effect?
So which effect you told just now?
The IL should decrease.
Are you guys able to hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I had some sudden disconnection. And are you guys able to see my screen still?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay, great. All right. Now, yeah, so I couldn't hear what you guys were saying before I got disconnected. So RL increases, V out increases. Now, someone said that, the current will not change. To a first order, yes, but then we are now kind of nitpicking on it, right? It is in the forward active mode, so typically it is fairly constant, but then it is only fairly constant and not perfectly constant, right? Why it is not perfectly constant? It's because of the early effect. What is early effect?
So the R naught resistance that is between the
Exactly, right? So
correct
if you,
and
for an NPN transistor, you will have, some kind of a slope here, right? Okay. So now as Vout increases, what happens to this VEC?
so that will also I think increase.
No. Let's say this is VCC is constant. Okay. Vout is increasing. Now what does KVL tell you?
VEC decreases.
VEC decrease.
Yeah. Yeah, VCC is equal to VEC plus Vout. Now, as this increases, this is constant, VEC has to decrease. Now, let us say for a PNP transistor, you plot the IC versus VEC. I mean, you just flip the polarity, you'll get the same curve, right? So, if you are getting like this, what is this? Right? Now, you are reducing your VEC. So, that means your IC will reduce, correct? So now let us say at a little higher Vout, you're getting a lower current. So it is kind of going to have a small slope like this. And of course, if you bring it into the saturation region, it's kind of going to collapse, right? Understood? So anyway, let's say we are not going to go into this region. We are only going to be in this region. But we can see that as your load changes, your Vout changes, your Vout change results in a little change in current, and the change in current is given by your R naught, right? So you can kind of say that this I naught is now going to have a R naught and also RL. So that will be the model, correct? Now let us say I want a constant current source which is even better than this. Okay, I don't want it to drop off by even this factor. So you all have done the experiment in lab. At least the ECE students have done it in lab. You know that, as VEC changes or the VCE changes, your current changes, right? Now let's say I want it to be even more constant. Right? Let's say my variation from this point to this point should be less than some 1% or something like that. Okay. Now how can we do it? Now this is where feedback comes and helps us. Okay. So let me give you a circuit, but before that, let me try to explain. Okay. Now I have my same PNP transistor, but I also have an op amp here. All right. The fundamental concept in all negative feedback system is that you sense something and you go and correct another quantity. Okay. So there is sensing, okay, measure, and then you have a certain comparison and correction. So in one of the earlier classes, I gave you this example. Let's say you are riding a motorcycle, a bike or something like that, and you want to maintain your speed at, let's say, constant at 40 kilometers per hour, right? So what will you do? So suppose you're going at 35. How will you know you're going at 35? You need to look at your speedometer, right? So your speedometer is basically sensing, and that information is going into your brain through your eyes. So sensing is happening, right? So you realize in what state you are. Then what happens? You compare it with a reference, right? So in your mind, you're thinking, no, I want to go at 40, but I'm going only at 35. So there is a comparison, right? Now, after your comparison, what do you get? You know whether you're going slow or whether you're going fast. Now, once you have that comparison, you go and effect a certain change, right? You go and control, or let's say drive or modify or something. Now, in this case, we will, just a minute. I'm in a class, I'll call you back. So what happens here is you need to control something such that in the example of riding a bike, what you go and do is you just increase your acceleration such that you go up to 40 kilometers per hour. Okay. Now the same thing has to happen here. All right. Now your load is here. Okay, let's say this is your load, your V out. Now you need to somehow sense the amount of current that is going into your load. Okay. And this sensing should be kind of independent. I mean, you should be able to sense and know, okay, this much is what I'm having. So for that, what I'm going to do is, let's say this is VCC. I'm going to put a small resistor here. Let me call it R. Okay. Now, if I'm going to tap this voltage, let me call it as V1. What is this voltage V1? Let's say the current that is flowing here is I. Let's just say for now that the IE is almost equal to IC. Let's just say IL is going to flow through this. Can you tell me what is V1?
So VCC minus ILRL.
IL times R. Okay, let's say this resistance is R. So V1 is VCC minus IL times R. And this voltage is going to give us a notion of how much current is basically flowing. Right? R is a constant, is a resistor. So even though you change the load, if the current is going to change, this voltage V1 is going to change. So we have finished the sensing part. Now we need to do comparison. Now how can we compare? So basically what we can do is we need to generate some kind of a reference voltage. Let's say I just put a resistive divider. Let's call it R1 and R2. And let me say I give it to, so let's say this is my reference. Okay. My Vref, let's call it as Vref. What is my Vref here?
So VCC times R2 divided by R1 plus R2.
Very simple, right? R2 divided by R1 plus R2 times VCC. Okay. So let's figure out how much to give and other things. I mean, what should be R1, R2? Let's figure out. Let's just say we kind of take a reference. Reference is being generated using this resistive divider. Okay. Now compare. Now we need to compare. All right. Now how can we compare? So we have an op amp here, and we all know that an op amp does difference between two things and then amplifies. Right. So let us say I'm going to give this to one terminal of the op amp and this voltage to another terminal of the op amp. All right. Okay. So comparison is done. Notice that I still haven't put the polarities, which is the minus terminal, which is the plus terminal. I'm just going to leave it for some time. Okay. Now I'm sensing the current. I'm generating a reference and I'm doing some kind of a comparison. Now I need to control. Now what can I control in this circuit? What is there to control?
So we can control the base current.
We can control the base of the transistor. Okay. All right. Now this is a negative feedback loop. All right. This is not yet a negative feedback loop because we haven't put the polarities correctly. So if we don't put the polarities correctly, I mean, it can end up being a positive feedback loop, and it will go and get stuck at VCC or ground. So that is possible. Okay, but okay, whatever. So I hope till now everything is clear. Any doubts? Okay, anyway, before you have doubts, I think I have to explain the operation of this. Now let us say I am changing my load. All right. And because I've changed my load, let us say, for example, my load current has increased. Or in this case, what did we say? Let's say if my RL is increased, my V out has increased, and let us say my IL has decreased. Okay. So let us say that IL decreases. Okay. Now, if IL decreases, what happens to V1?
Increase.
So increases.
It will increase, right? So IL decreases, V1 will increase. So which means this has increased. Now, if V1 has increased, but in order to restore my current, right? In which direction should the base move, or in which direction should my op amp move, right?
So it should increase the base current, I think.
Don't think of base current because base current is in the order of few microamps. Let's say the difference is even more than that. Okay. Here you can see that the VBE is control or the VEB is under our control. Can you think in terms of VEB? Because it's a voltage. Basically, you're talking about a voltage here.
We have to reduce the voltage at base.
Correct. Because
Yes,
you
sir.
need to restore the load current, which means we need IL to increase, which means our VEB has to increase. Okay, which basically means that our VB has to decrease, as you guys correctly pointed out, right? So which means this terminal has to go down, right? Your op-amp output terminal has to go down. Now you tell me, will this terminal be minus or plus? The first terminal, let's say,
Minus.
The minus.
it will be minus because there is an inverting action which is happening, right? V1 increases and correspondingly your Vout decreases, which means you have to basically connect it to the negative terminal, and obviously this becomes the positive terminal of your op-amp. Okay. So for any feedback loop, the polarity of the op-amp is very important. Okay. Now suppose you invert the polarity, what will happen? If you suppose connect this to plus terminal, right? This will also go in the same direction, which means the base will go up. That will reduce the current further. V1 will still reduce, V1 will still go up. That will increase the base even further, which means it will end up in a situation where you have zero current, right? So zero current meaning Vout will be at zero. Or in the other case, if suppose, let's say this IL has increased, I mean, the positive feedback loop can kind of start in some point, and either it can, I mean, if it starts off with a point where IL is greater than what you desire, then it will go and end up with Vout equal to VCC almost. If not, it will go and end up with Vout equal to 0. Okay. So basically your loop will not work. It will go and get stuck at VCC, or it will go stuck at ground. Okay. So the polarity of the op-amp, I mean, connection to the right polarity is very important. Okay. In fact, I mean, there are cases. So some people, by kind of mistake, they think that always you have to give to the negative terminal if it is a negative feedback loop. That is not necessarily very true. Okay. There are certain cases where it can even go to a positive feedback. I mean, the feedback can be even around the positive terminal, because there is another element in this particular thing. There are different elements, okay, which so that is very important. So you have to always make sure that you this is what is called as kind of going around the loop. You kind of break the loop in one point. In our case, what we did was we kind of broke the loop here, right? And then we saw that if the current increases, in which direction should my op-amp go? And that is how we decided the polarity of our op-amp. Okay. Okay. So now this is how our circuit is basically going to work. The same way, if let us say IL increases, V1 goes down, and automatically the base voltage is now increased such that the IL is restored to the required value. All right. So now so if this is the circuit, can you tell me what is the IL that you can expect?
So IR will be more of a straight line before.
Yeah, that is true. Let us say what will be the value. So again here we know that because of the high output gain, right? Like, and because it's a negative feedback, we know that this is basically going to be in virtual ground, right? So which basically means that this node voltage and this node voltage are going to be the same. So what is this node voltage? This we have already found out, VCC into R2 divided by R1 plus R2, which means this voltage is also going to be what? VCC times R2 divided by R1 plus R2. Now, if that is the voltage, what is the current? IL can be written as VCC minus VCC R2 by R1 plus R2 divided by R. Correct. So IL can be written as VCC into 1 minus R2 divided by R1 plus R2 times 1 by R, which is nothing but R1 divided by R1 plus R2 into VCC divided by R. So for example, if IL is required to be 10 milliampere. Okay. Now, how will you design this loop? So you have already designed the loop. There is nothing more to design in terms. I mean, an op amp is an op amp. You take and place an op amp. You know how to connect. The only things that need to be decided are R1, R2, and R. Correct. So you can basically go. You already know VCC. Let's say VCC is plus 15 volt. Okay, and let us say this is given to plus 15 volt and minus 15 volt. Right. The op amp is going to work like this. And let's say this is a grounded, the load is grounded, right? So your VCC is fixed, your IL is fixed, you have 3 resistors to play around with. I mean, you can kind of decide what is the VREF that you want it to be. Now, how will you choose this point? Would you want this voltage to be high or do you want this voltage to be low?
Sir, in between VCC by 2.
Why VCC by 2?
So to maintain the Q point.
That is an amplifier. Here, you're not giving any small signals. You're building a constant current source here. So let us look at the output section. You have a resistor, and then you have your PNP transistor, and then you have your RL, your Vout. Now, what is the max Vout? What is Vout max? Up to what voltage can this Vout go so that it will still act as a proper current source?
Sir, VCC minus V set by R will be the current and
if you have I mean, you kind of want this to be in the forward active mode, right?
Yes, sir.
If it goes into saturation, if you look at this particular thing, if you move this thing into the saturation, then as your voltage changes, your current will change even more drastically, right? So you want it to be in the saturation region. Right? Of course, the feedback loop will try to correct it, but I mean, at least let's give it some VCE sat. What about the voltage across this resistor? Right? If there is current flow through a resistor, it definitely will have a voltage drop across it. Right? So the Vout max can be written as VCC minus IL, which is fixed. I mean, this feedback loop is going to make sure that your IL is fixed. So IL times R is anyway going to be lost over there, minus, let's say, at least VCE sat. So VCE sat is, let's say, some 0.2 or 0.3 volt. That's nothing much. You have 15 volt here. What is going to be the significant component here? IL times R. Now, when you talk about a current source, what is Vout max? You're saying that my current source is going to behave like a current source from 0 to Vout max. If it goes beyond that, things are going to kind of start breaking. Right? So you want to, if you're trying to build a constant, you want to have as high a range of voltages as possible. Correct? That is obvious. Right? So you want to make sure that this ILR term is as low as possible. Does it make sense? Is everyone following me? Right?
Yes, sir.
Right? Your IL times R should be low, because otherwise you will say, okay, if you say Vout is only VCC by 2, then you'll say, okay, I have built a nice current source, but it is working only from 0 to 7.5 volt. Although I am giving a supply voltage of 15 volt, which is kind of insane, right? You don't want that to happen. So which means what? IL times R should be as low as possible, which means that R has to be be low. In fact, this is what is called as a, high side sensing for current sources. But let's say, you're doing a series sensing on the current. Okay. If you recall your understanding of ammeters, the series resistance is expected to be as small as possible, right? Inside your multimeter, or if you take an ammeter, it has a series resistance, and you measure the voltage across the series resistance, right? And you want that voltage, you want the voltage drop to be as minimal as possible, right? So R has to be low. So let's say you put some, 10 ohms or 50 ohms or 100 ohms, something like that, right? So for example, in our example, let's say take R to be 100 ohms. Okay, I is 10 milliampere. What is this IL times R drop? So you have 1 volt, right? Just kind of on the higher side. Maybe you can even go to a little lower resistance and then see whether you can have a little lower drop. Now, once this you fix, let's say you fix, in this case, let us just say R is equal to 100. So which means that for ideal condition, VCC minus IL times R is how much? 14 volt, right? So which means that VCC times R2 divided by R1 plus R2 is also going to be 14 volt. So now you go and design R1, R2 in such a way. You can take R1 and R2 to be some really large values, because you don't want this R1 and R2. It is also going to take current, right? Like the current drawn is VCC divided by R1 plus R2. So you don't want to waste a lot of current in this resistive divider. So maybe you will take some kilo ohms or tens of kilo ohms of range of resistance. So for example, you can take 140 divided by, you can basically work out the relationship. Okay. So this is how you will design your loop. All right. Now there is, this circuit is very resilient, even in terms of temperature, even if you have temperature drift, right? Even if you have temperature drift, automatically this feedback circuit is going to make sure that the base voltage is adjusted so that the current is constant. Right? Now, even resistor values also will drift with temperature. But since you're talking about, of course, R drift is there. So you can probably take a resistor with low temperature coefficient for this one. For R1 and R2, it's really not a big deal, because as temperature drifts, both the resistors are going to change by, the same scaling factor, right? And therefore the ratios will be kind of preserved, right? So that is why these two resistors, R1 and R2, you don't need to really worry about the temperature coefficient that much, but whereas for R, you need to worry. Okay? And there is only one major source of error, which is basically the base current, right? Here we have assumed that IE is equal to IC. You have a small base current flowing in. So IC is basically IE minus IB, or rather the direction of the current is the other way around. Right? And sometimes some second order, third order effects, IB can become a function of VC. Okay, so that is a very higher order effect kind of thing. So that is the only other major source of error. Apart from that, you will have offset errors coming into the picture. Right? So offset error, let us say we model offset by saying that there is going to be a P offset here, right, in some polarity. Now what will happen? That offset voltage divided by R, that will be the error in the current, right? Between IL required and IL actually measured, there will be a difference because of the offset voltage. Right? Now, not only that, you will also have some small base current which is flowing in here, the bias current, input bias current. So that input bias current also will flow through R1, right? And R1 will flow through that one. So that will give rise to a little bit of error. So basically between the IL designed and the IL measured, you will have some difference. But what you would see is pretty much for all values of load, the current will remain constant. Okay. So you'll have what is kind of called as the offset error. So that is like as V out changes, your current will pretty much remain constant. Only thing is you might have expected here, but you would have got a slightly lower value of current, because slightly lower or slightly higher depending on the value of polarity of the offset of that particular op-amp, and also due to the bias currents that are coming into the picture. Okay. Sorry, the the input bias currents of your op-amp. All right. So any doubts, any questions in this circuit?
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, can you explain that part that if, sir, we want a constant current source. Means then when we have the voltage means 0 to 0.7 volt, then how it can be not good? Means we have high value of voltage drop across IR.
Okay, okay. So let's say this is your V out. Let's say this is 0 to, let us say VCC. Now, let us say I am taking this ILR to be a little higher value, as someone once mentioned, like, if you're going to, let's say, take 7.5 volt. Now, what will happen? If you put it at around 7.5 volt, then it means that it's going to be a constant current source till around 7.5. And after that, it's kind of going to degrade something like this. Right. Now compare it to this other case where I'm going to put it at 1 volt, and let us say this is going to kind of be there till, let's say this is 14 volt, and after that it's kind of going to drop off like this. Now, which of the two is a better current source? Obviously the one which can operate over a longer voltage range, right? So which means that you have more flexibility over the load resistor that you are using, right?
Okay, yes, sir.
Got it? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, so we built a constant current source here. So you guys will be building it in the lab in this Friday's experiment. All right. Now let us also see how you can build a constant voltage source. Now, what is a constant voltage source? No matter what load you put, it maintains the same voltage. Correct? Now, if you, let us say, if you want to have, basically these are very useful circuits. I will explain the thing a little later. Let us say you have an incoming reference, let's say Vref. Now, in the previous thing, I gave you a reference generated like this. You can kind of, design it in different ways and so on. Now, let us say you have a very good reference voltage. Okay. Let us say I'm using a Zener diode or something. But the thing is that Zener diode cannot, just using the Zener diode, you cannot power different loads, because as current changes, just using a Zener diode, you cannot, power different loads. So you need something that can pump current also, but at the same time doesn't change as your, the voltage doesn't change as your load changes. Now, what is a good circuit to use for that? You can maybe try to use a common collector, right? Or a common, emitter follower, right? So let's say this is your RL. Now we know from our understanding that V out is going to be Vref minus 0.7 volt. Okay. Now this is a very approximate way of looking at it, but as RL changes and as current through the emitter changes, right? Your base current also now is going to start changing, right? And therefore there will be other discrepancies, and you will basically, as your emitter current changes, this is more of an approximate value saying that, the base emitter voltage is 0.7 volt, right? Now, if you are very precise, if you are going to count your millivolts, right, definitely it will change, right? As the emitter current changes, your base emitter voltage, if you want a larger emitter current, you need to have a larger base emitter voltage, and vice versa. So the actual output would basically be Vref minus VBE. Now, as RL changes, your VBE will also change due to IE change, correct? And therefore, it is not a very great voltage source. This is a good voltage source, definitely better than, this thing. I mean, you can also have a case where you have a very good voltage reference, but has a very poor internal resistance, right? When I say voltage reference, let's say it is constant across temperature or something like that. But then let us say that it has a very poor internal resistance, right? So this circuit will work to a certain extent, but if let's say you want to improve it even further, now what can we do? Let us use the same concept. So there are three concepts. So first of all, we need a comparison plus amplification. So we put on op amp. We have our NPN transistor also. Let us say we connect our load here, right? Let's say this is VCC, and let's say you have your reference voltage VREF. Okay. Now, first of all, what we need to do, we need to sense. In this case, what are we sensing? Are we sensing a current or are we sensing a voltage?
So voltage.
Voltage, right? We are interested in basically V out being exactly equal to VREF, correct? So voltage sensing is very easy. So you can basically take this and put it here. Let us say the second step is comparison. So let us say I have a VREF here. I'm going to connect it to the two input terminals of my op amp. Now the third thing is basically control or modifying the element. So what can be controlled here?
The base voltage.
The base of your NPN transistor, right? All right. So how will this work? Let us say for some reason my Vout has now increased. Okay. For some reason my Vout has increased. All right. Now what should happen? How should my op amp behave? What should happen to the base voltage here?
So base voltage should increase.
Should it increase? Because what is V out here? Let's say this is VB, the V capital B. Let's say this is the base voltage, right? V out can be written as VB minus VBE, right? So for some reason, let's say the voltage has increased.
So decrease because
you have to decrease. You have to decrease your base voltage so that the V out comes back to the original value that is intended. So then what is the polarity to which the feedback is connected? Is this a minus terminal or plus terminal?
It's a minus.
Minus terminal, because it is going in opposite directions, right? You're giving an input where the input is increasing and you want an output where which should decrease, right? Which should go in the opposite direction. So you are going to connect it to the inverting terminal of your op amp. So automatically this becomes the other positive terminal of your op amp, right? So basically what is going to happen is that it is going to sense this voltage here and it is going to form the difference here and it is going to drive the base in such a way that it is going to come to whatever this thing. So here we are not looking at frequency response, we are not looking at compensation and things like that. Those things, I mean, you will study more in control systems. I just want to look at the circuit aspects of it, okay, so that you understand this. All right. Now, how to generate a reference, right? Let's say you have a Zener diode, okay. So let us say the requirement is that you have a constant voltage across temperature, right? So let's say we put a Zener diode, all right, and you can say, okay, there is some resistor to basically just bias the Zener diode. The Zener diode is of course biased at, you will have different Zener diodes. You can have 5 volt or lower, higher, and so on, right? And if you do something like this, then V out becomes exactly equal to the voltage that you're getting here. So the what is the voltage here? What will be your V out? So this is negative feedback. So both there is virtual short between these two terminals, which means this is the voltage. Let's call this as V1. V out becomes equal to V1. What is V1 here?
Sir, VCC minus Zener voltage.
Is minus the Zener voltage, which is, let's say, Vz. Got it? Now suppose I want to have a voltage which is lesser than this voltage. Okay. So Zener diodes are all available in a certain configuration only. Correct. Like, I mean, let's say you have a 5.6 volt Zener. Okay. And let's say you want a 3.5 volt. What can you do? So there are two cases. So suppose you want V out greater than Vref. All right. If you want V out greater than Vref, what can you do? So basically let's say you're stuck with this Zener voltage, right? Let's say this is the positive terminal. I mean, a very simple trick can help us. All you do is you take this, you put a resistive divider, let's call it R1, R2. You tap this, okay? Now what will happen is you need to make sure, so here it is going to be Vref is going to be equal to, because of virtual short, V out times R2 divided by R1 plus R2. Or in other words, what is going to happen is V out is going to be R1 plus, I mean 1 plus R1 by R2 times Vref. So you are going to get a voltage output which is going to be greater than Vref. If you want equal to Vref, don't put any resistive divider, directly connect it. But if you want any voltage greater than Vref, you can put a voltage divider. In fact, you can even build a variable voltage source, that is to say a voltage regulator. In fact, you can use this as a rheostat or a potentiometer, and you can build a voltage source where you have a tunable knob. Okay. In fact, something which is very similar to this is what is sitting inside all your voltage supplies, right? The power supplies that you are using inside your, in the lab. Basically, what do? You use a knob to control your DC voltage. Okay. Now, what is that knob doing? It is going to change. I mean, you will have a very similar thing. I mean, this might be a more simpler circuit. You will have voltage regulator ICs. Okay. This is also what is called as a low dropout regulator. Basically, it means that there is a dropout voltage. You have VCC, you have at least some VCE here. So V out is going to be VCC minus VCE here. Okay. So there is always you will have some kind of a drop across this, right? So you cannot go all the way up to VCC. There is some dropout. So you can also build what is called as the low dropout regulators. In other words, this is called as LDO. Okay. So these are what is called as regulator ICs as well. Regulator ICs are there where this whole thing is inside a single IC. You can go and check up the data sheet of 723 IC7. I think it is LM723. This is a voltage regulator IC, okay, which has its own internal reference, and you'll have separate pins connecting here and there. I mean, you can build a LDO, okay. But the fundamental concept remains kind of the same. This is what is sitting inside even all your DC power supplies or voltage sources. Okay. You change a knob, you change the DC voltage. How do you change? Basically by doing something like this. Now again, if you want to have V out which is less than Vref, what you do is you take the reference voltage and you put a resistive divider. Let's say this is your Vref. You have some R1, R2. You connect this to your op amp. Let's say this is your RL, right? This is your VO. Okay. Now, of course, there is something called a frequency compensation and other things, which we will not go into it, but these are the ways by which you can do. Any doubts, any questions?
Sir, how will we decide the resistance below the Zener diode?
So that is basically, yeah, good question. So how does a Zener behave? Zener basically is like this, like it's kind of a normal diode in the forward bias mode, but nobody uses Zener in the forward one. We are more interested in the reverse bias one, right? Now, this is basically your Zener voltage, or let's say magnitude of Zener voltage. Now, this is your I-axis, right? Now, suppose you pick a point which is, let us say, somewhere here. Okay. Let's say this is 1 milliamp. Okay. Now, what can happen is in the Zener data sheet, Zener diode data sheet, you will see what is the minimum current. So, for example, as temperature changes, probably this is going to become constant only at little higher voltage, higher current, okay, or lower current. So there will be some variation, right? So you kind of take a little margin and you kind of put it at, let's say this is some 3 milliampere, for example. I'm just giving you some example. You have to check the data sheet of the Zener diode. So you take into account the temperature variation that is there. You take into account the spread that is there, right? One Zener diode to another Zener diode, there will be some small changes. So you kind of take a value which is going to ensure that even if you're going to manufacture, let's say 1,000 or 10,000 pieces of your circuit, even with all the variation that is there, with all different temperature variation also, your Zener diode is going to be well into your reverse bias mode, and it is acting in the Zener breakdown region, right? Now you can also go and put somewhere here, like which is let's say 50 milliamp, but that is really a waste of current, because now you're going to design a circuit where you're unnecessarily spending a lot of power, right? So 50 milliamp into 15 volt is a large amount of power that you're wasting there. So you make a trade-off. You see what is the minimum amount of current that you can bias your Zener diode in, such that it ends up being in the Zener mode all the time. Okay, that's how you design this resistance R. Because the current that is going to flow through this is what? Though this node voltage is VCC minus VZ. So that divided by R is the current that is flowing through the Zener diode. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I mean, you will, if you have a lower VREF voltage, you can also have the Zener diode below and the resistor above. Both are fine. Okay. All right. Okay. So with this, I'll conclude today's class. So both these circuits, the constant voltage source and the constant current source, of course, you'll not use the Zener and all that, but at least using a DC voltage, you will be using this and building it in lab. So RL, you will test it for different values of RL and plot the current and see how it is going to be constant or how the voltage is going to be constant. All right. Okay. So thanks everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, in
Yeah,
lab,
tell me.
ma'am was saying that she will take the lab on Wednesday so that we can complete our previous practicals.
Yeah. I think Bharadwaj had messaged me. So you guys can have the lab today. You can just check with them. If I think the tutors are free, you guys go ahead and please do your lab. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Right.
Sir,
Thank you,
I
sir.
had a doubt. Can I ask?
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Sir, for a op amp, is it necessary that voltage of the plus terminal will be more than voltage of minus terminal, or so?
No, not at all. It can be either way.
Okay. So when we built the non-inverting amplifier,
Right.
what you drew was you connected R1 through the negative terminal and the input voltage through positive terminal.
Correct.
So we can also swap the two.
No. So in a non-inverting amplifier, so this is V in, and actually you can swap, but then it will not be an amplifier anymore. We will see that is also another circuit which we will look at in probably the next week or something like that. Let's say this is R2, R1. What you're saying is if you swap the polarity, if you make this as plus and make this as minus, this becomes what is called as a Schmidt trigger. Okay, we will look at it, all right. But the other comment that you said that whether the voltage at the plus has to be always greater than the voltage at the negative, not at all, okay. So this can go down.
Sir,
For example,
actually,
V in can be, sorry?
Sir, actually, I tried this circuit, and when A was very large, then the then the drain coming was the same as that came in the previous circuit. I mean to say, the drain was same in both the circuits. So I couldn't understand that why we cannot use this circuit as an amplifier.
Okay,
Here
what you're
also
saying
when
is
I
you simulated like this.
Sir, I tried it in pen and paper, and I was still getting V out by V in equal to minus
okay.
R2
In
by
pen
R1.
and paper. I understood.
Yes,
in simulation, you will not get it. In pen and paper, I have also made that mistake. So I'll tell you the problem. The problem is, in this case, this is a positive feedback circuit. All right. Now, because this is the positive, okay, the analysis we will do in probably sometime next week. Can you wait till then? So basically what happens is you have to work it out as, I mean, you can't assume virtual short here. Okay, you cannot assume a virtual ground or a virtual short here, because that is valid only when you have a negative feedback system, or for that matter, you look at only when you have a negative feedback system, you know that things are going to work in such a way that this thing. So for example, if you have some 5 volt here, it means that this voltage Vp minus Vm times the open loop gain will be equal to 5 volt here. So with that, you can find out what is the residual error and things like that. But anyway, so here you cannot assume virtual short. You have to kind of write the full expression, and you will see that it is a positive feedback circuit, and it will either go to VCC or minus VE. Okay, we'll look at it in the next class. Okay, in the next
Okay,
week's
sir.
classes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir.